Well, greetings, everybody, on this wonderful, blessed Sunday afternoon. And Pastor Mike here. Glad to have you with me. And I'm kind of up close and personal on the screen, it looks like. But, well, I'm not going to make any changes now, I don't think. But I know that I didn't give you really much time to get ready for the message today. I've got just a short thought that I wanted to share with you, and you saw it on the screen, I am sure, on the notification. And let me bring it up to you this way. And what you have here is a difference in a pole fishing there on the right and the net fishing on the left. And so the question is, which do you think you would prefer if you were going after a lot of fish? The pole method or the method of the net? And I'll give you a little bit more about that invitation now and the separation later. But let me just read the scriptures for you. And again, thanks for being with me. Thanks for sharing. I've got just a few minutes with you, and I don't want to take up a lot of your time today. But in the 13th chapter of Matthew, the whole chapter of Matthew is riddled with the parable of what heaven is like, the kingdom of heaven, rather, I should say. The kingdom of heaven is like unto, and then he gives us very, very various things from soils to wheat and tares. He gives us, I've got them here, I've got... I can't see because I've got glasses on. The mustard seed, the leaven, the field, the pearl, full net is what we're talking about here. And thanks for being with me. Hello, Pastor Mike Strella says. Hello, sis. Good to have you with me today. And so the kingdom of heaven, really the kingdom of heaven is likened into, it's the spiritual form of the kingdom in the church. And in this particular parable, this is the seventh parable, the way I count them, the seventh parable that Jesus is sharing. These are his words. And he gets to this part where I've had some assumptions in the past. Maybe you have too. Maybe you've just always thought he was talking about a certain thing. But if you look at the verses here, hey, Stella Stone, blessings to you. It says again, the kingdom of heaven, verse 47. So that lets us know he's been talking about it prior to, and he certainly has. He's trying to give us an understanding that I don't think I didn't get it for a long time. In fact, until just recently, you read and you understand, oh, there's wheat and there's tares that are growing up together. Ah, okay. And he specifies, he says, look, don't mess with the tares. The enemy sowed those. Don't mess with them. Let them grow. And at harvest time, they'll be taken care of, but you don't need to be the ones taking care of them. So as a believer and as a child of God in the kingdom, as I walk through this life, my job is, even as a pastor, is not for the judgment of the good and the bad. My role is not to separate even. And my goal is certainly not to be just specific in the kind of fish that I'm catching. So here's what he says. Again, the kingdom of heaven is likened to a net. A dragnet, some of your translations will say, and I believe that is exactly right. The original language talks about a dragnet. I love fishing, but I'm more like this picture. Here it is again. I'm more like the picture on the right. I love cane pole fishing. And man, you especially with that in a bobber, oh my goodness, it's just so cool. You throw that thing out there, but it's specific, y'all, to what you're trying to catch. It depends on what the fisherman is wanting to catch. Are you with me? So there are times that I've gone after just specific for, we call them Mississippi whites or blue cat, depends on what you're talking about. But it's catfish, and they're the bluish white, real good white meat. And I've caught them from trot lines to jug lines. I've snagged one before. All kinds of stuff. And fly fishing, I've never tried fly fishing. I've always wanted to do that. But the point is, Jesus has given us an understanding of what the kingdom of heaven is like. And it's not pole fishing. Okay? It's really not specific. You get a pole, and I got to tell you, it's hard for two people to fish with one pole. I don't know if you ever tried it, but it don't work very good. And the reason it don't is because, I mean, you could, I suppose, one person cast and the other person reel in when you get a bite. But what fun is that? You know, I want my own pole. And I've gotten to the point where I'm really, really aggressive, so I may have 2 or 3 poles out. What's 2 or 3 poles compared to a huge net? Look at the net again. Okay, there it is. How long is it going to take you to catch that many fish? And that's the point. That's the point of what the kingdom of heaven is like. And so he said it's like a drag net. The drag net that you pull behind 2 boats, or you get out there and you start pushing it toward the shore, okay, that was cast into the sea and gathered of every kind. Now, obviously, he's probably talking about fish, but every kind, to me, is every kind of whatever the net catches. You all know that you throw a net in there, it's going to catch things that maybe you didn't know were in the bottom of that lake or sea or whatever. You didn't even know they were there, but the net catches them. And the net can't differentiate between good and bad. It can't differentiate between perch and shad and catfish and bass. It just catches everything in its path. Therein is what the Lord is wanting us to understand about what the kingdom of heaven is like, and our role in the kingdom of heaven process, because we have many times taken on the role that wasn't ours to take. And let me show you some of that. So he says, the kingdom of heaven is like unto a net that was cast into the sea and gathered of every kind. Okay? You might say it's a universal gathering into the kingdom. Remember, John 3:16, it says, for God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten son. Does it mean everybody in the world is going to be saved? No, even this parable indicates that that's not the case. But when it says gathered of every kind, we assume it's talking about fish, but really it's talking about anything that net catches. And again, the scripture I'm reminded of the earth is the Lord's and the fullness thereof. So the kingdom of heaven is like this big net being cast out there. And it gathers of every kind, and the net is not differentiating between the good and the bad. It has no way to do that. The fishermen aren't even doing that yet. They are just casting the net. Here's really what I'm wanting to get us to. Hello, Robin. What I wanted to get us to is we've got to understand what our role is and what our role is not. Our role is not the pole fishing, and I'm going to bring it up again, and then I'm going to share a little bit just about the titles, because I just got to tell you, I think that the church perhaps has done a lot of pole fishing. I think we've been specific. When you go get one rod and reel and you have a tackle box, depending on whatever species of fish you're going after, that's the kind of lure that you get. That's the kind of bait that you get. I've got one for you. This is not really a secret, but I'm going to tell you, you want to catch a lot of catfish and blue cat, you should get you a silver hook, get you some regular hot dog wieners, slice those things down the middle, all right, and then crossways to where you have about that big, like a pencil head that barely just covers the hook, the tip of the hook. That's all it has to do. But you take those things and you soak them in oil, vegetable oil, and garlic powder. You stir those things up and let them set and let that stuff set and ferment, and then you put that on that hook. throw it out there. I mean, little bitty. And we've caught some huge Mississippi blue catfish off of just a little bitty pieces of wieners. And so we were specific going after those. There was a couple of spoonbill that got caught in the wake of our trot lines. And that, as long as they were legal and in the right time frame and all that, it's all good. But my point is, this is not that kind of fishing even. It's not even a trot line fishing that Jesus is telling us the kingdom of heaven is like. He's telling us the kingdom of heaven is like a dragnet. And so let me show you the picture, and then we'll just finish this passage. Because you'll see there on the left, the villagers, they've thrown out a net and they've gathered it to the shore. And I don't know what all kinds of fish those are, but it looks like a variety. There's small, medium, large, all kinds. And the question mark goes to the pole fishing. If you're wanting going after fish, which is better, the bulk or just one at a time? And then you see the title, Invitation Now and Separate Later. And that's the part I want to end with in our time together. We are living right now in a time where the dispensation of the age is an age of grace. We're living in a time where the invitation is out there for whosoever will come, let him come. Whosoever will call upon the name of the Lord, whosoever will believe in their heart and confess with their mouth, they will be saved. But there comes a time later when the dragnet has been brought to shore, and then there's a separation that happens, just like the wheat and the tares that you can read about earlier in the 13th chapter of Matthew. But here, concluding, it says, which when it was full, when the net was full, they drew to shore. Now, see, we don't know. We don't have an ability to know when that net is full. We don't know when the end of this age is going to happen. Many scoff and say, I've heard that all my life. Well, the Bible talks about people that say that. So I hope you're not one of them that say, I don't believe in that rapture. I don't believe in this. I don't believe in the end of the age because it hadn't happened yet. Well, remember the scripture says that there will be scoffers in the last day that say, where's the sign of his coming? It hadn't happened yet. So I hope you're not one of them. The reason I totally believe that Jesus hasn't come back for his church and hadn't come back for the rapizo, the Greek word for rapture, is simply because he loves mankind so much. He loves me. He loves you. He really loves you. And he's waiting. He and the Father are waiting until just the right time when the net is full. Listen to what the word says, which when it was full, they drew to shore, sat down and gathered the good into vessels, but cast the bad away. Don't get hung up on good and bad. When we think of good and bad, we think of, good person, bad person. Good person, they do good things. Bad person, they do bad things. It's not so much that plays into it, but just like when I explained, when I'm fishing with a bass rig, then I'm fishing for bass. So when I catch a bass, listen to the comparison. That's a good fish for me today because I'm fishing for bass. When I'm fishing for bass and I catch a carp, that's a bad fish. I'm not fishing for carp. I don't really ever fish for carp, but I'm not fishing for carp. If I caught a catfish, it's not what I'm after. I may be in a place where it's only catch and release, so I want to catch the bass, okay? So here's the deal. Thank you, Nanette, for joining us tonight. And it was a quickie, so it was like late getting the notice out there, so I didn't give you guys much time. I do apologize for that. But we're in the full net parable, Matthew 13, verses 47 through 50. And the net is being drawn. It's a drag net, and I've seen these nets. I've fished in Mexico, and I've seen the gill nets that they use. And as a bass fisherman, trying to catch all the bass, it was kind of aggravating because there'd be times you wouldn't know there was a net out there, because what they do is they get them up in these coves and they block them off, and then the fish just run into them, and then they go around and check their nets. Well, you're casting as far as you can because you don't want to scare the bass with the boat. Cast way out there, and then you're hung up. What are you hung up on? The net. And so you're just fishing for one, and they're fishing for the quantity. That's what the kingdom of heaven looks like. The kingdom of heaven and the church should not be about pole fishing. It shouldn't be about selective fishing. It's not about just gaining people that look like I do, act like I do, believe like I do, see things like I do, worship like I do, or don't worship like I don't. It's not about that. It's about gathering the net until it's full. And here's the process. It should bring us some relief. It should take the stress off of us, especially pastors. It's not our job to catch them and clean them. Okay? It's not our job to catch them, clean them, and separate them, or catch them, separating them, and clean them. It's not our job. Here's the deal. The kingdom of heaven is likened to a net that was cast into the sea and gathered of every kind, which when it was full, they drew to shore and sat down and gathered the good into the vessels, but cast the bad away. So shall it be at the end. At what end? The end of this age, at the end of this dispensation. It says, so shall it be at the end of the world. The angels shall come forth, because they know the ones that, they know the sheep from the goats. They know the wheat from the tares. They understand the good ground that is producing fruit versus the others that are being choked out by the thorns, etc., etc. It'll be that way, and the angels shall come forth and sever, my King James Version says, or separate, the wicked from among the just, and shall cast them into the furnace of fire. There shall be wailing and gnashing of teeth. And I want to bring this one more time up for you so you can see it. That's what I mean when I say the invitation is now. Separate, well, that comes later. And you know what? I'm thankful it's not my job to do the separation. So the invitation is out there. I hope you're extending the invitation to others to join the kingdom. I hope you're doing all that you can in your power to share with others and say, hey, come on, get on board. Let that net catch you, because it's going to be good. Amen. God bless you. Love you. Thanks for joining me tonight.